Hello, this is Michael Tracy. And if you want to understand why there is such a controversy about Mallory and Irvin's 1924 climb, you need to understand what happened on Mount Everest in 1960. Determining exactly what happened on the Chinese 1960 climb is difficult, and I will get into that in a future video. This video will present how the Chinese are using propaganda relating to Mount Everest and how that propaganda requires the Chinese to have summited in 1960 and Mallory and Irvin not to have made it in 1924. The Chinese propaganda about Mount Everest is part of China's larger strategic undertaking known as the Three Warfares. This video will look at public opinion warfare as it relates to Mount Everest. Like many totalitarian regimes, China used the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games to promote the propaganda agenda. A recent article in Slate reevaluates the 2008 ceremonies and makes the obvious parallels to prior totalitarian regimes. A key piece of the 2008 propaganda was one of the 8 flag bearers of the Olympic flag. The national flag of China was carried by Yao Ming, the basketball player, but 8 past Chinese athletes jointly carried the Olympic flag itself. One of these past athletes was Pat Hogg, which is her Tibetan name, or Pandu, which is her Chinese name. In the book, Another Ascent of the World's Highest Peak, she is referred to by her Tibetan name, Pat Hogg, so I will use that name when referencing historical works. However, she is referred to as Pandu in more recent news articles. Pat Hogg is the poster child for the occupation of Tibet. With just one click on Wikipedia, you are told her story as a peasant girl carrying 35-kilogram loads for 10 hours a day as a 13-year-old child. Of course, all this changed when, according to the reliable source cited by Wikipedia, Tibet was peacefully liberated in 1955. At this point, her life turned around, and she was elected to the National People's Congress 5 times and went on to serve in upper bureaucratic roles in Chinese sports. There's no mention of what she was doing during the Great Cultural Revolution when the other members of Chinese mountaineering were put into labor camps, nor is there any mention of the toes she lost on her Everest summit in 1975, a detail that will come in handy later in evaluating the alleged 1960 ascent. Here, Pat Hogg is training hard for the climb by reading the thoughts of Chairman Mao. Now, I am no fan of the Dalai Lama, nor Lamaism in general, but Pat Hogg is not typical of Tibetans during that period. She was an avid member of the Chinese government and likely knew her value as a propaganda piece until she died in 2014. And even after her death, she is still being used by Chinese propaganda to deliver the message that we should all just stop looking for Irvin and, whatever we do not talk about summit rocks and only focus on a camera. Beyond the 2008 Olympics, the Chinese have been busy making other propaganda films about Mount Everest. There is the 2019 movie, The Climbers, which featured Jackie Chan, though not in a lead role. I won't get into that movie in depth as it is a fictionalized account. I will just note that in the movie, the key plot point is that the 1960 team allegedly made it to the summit and took film of the summit, but dropped the camera on the way back down. The official Chinese account of the 1960 climb is that they reached the summit at night, and thus could not have taken any photos and did not think to use the camera until well into daylight when they were just at the top of the second step. Exactly what happened on the 1960 climb is a bigger mystery than the 1924 climb, but China is adamant that they made it and the British did not. This 2019 presentation is done by Jia Boyu, a member of the 1975 expedition who did not summit but lost both his feet to frostbite. The rest of his legs were amputated later for a different condition. In the 2019 movie The Climbers, the role Jackie Chan plays is roughly based on Jia Boyu's life, and Jia did summit Mount Everest in 2018 as a double amputee. Here he is telling a group of children about how the 1960 team was the first to reach the summit from the north side. You can see in this clip this is a big deal to them.
终于让五星红旗高高地飘扬在了珠穆朗玛峰的最高处，也成为世界上从北坡登顶珠峰的第一人。
I'll link to the full video in the description, but the smaller clip here appears to represent new footage from the 1960 climb, which will be critical to analyzing the mystery of 1960. I'm showing it here without comment so that people can do their own analysis prior to the upcoming video. Another video from 2016 provides more details of the 1960 climb. They repeat the claim that they were the first to reach the summit from the north. They also have this rather humorous animation of 2 approximately 8-foot-tall climbers attempting to scale the second step. And returning to the Tessring Che Naga Snow Mountain Museum, the home of the Yeti, The official narrative is that the Chinese were the first to summit from the north. So what does all this have to do with Mallory and Irvin? It is that for the Chinese propaganda, the two always go hand in hand. The 1960 Chinese made it, and the British did not. You can see this with the recent book, The Third Pole by Mark Sinnott. This book states that Mallory and Irvin didn't make it, but also curiously states that the 1960 Chinese did. The Third Pole has more than 10 pages of the book discussing the alleged 1960 summit, though in the book it is not alleged, it is stated as fact. And Mark Sinnott's motivation for doing this can be seen in this clip.
The Third Pole is being translated into Chinese, and so it will be read over there, and I feel like in some way, shape, or form that has to be, giving the whole story a stamp of approval.
Yeah.
In contrast, Wade Davis's Into the Silence did not mention the 1960 expedition once, and I do not view receiving the Chinese stamp of approval as in any way indicative that the book contains the truth. More likely, the opposite. I'm not sure if Into the Silence has been translated into Chinese. A simple search did not show any such translation, but if you are aware either way, please leave a comment. I do like Mark Sinnott's book as it was written on multiple levels, and I'm working on getting the review of it finished. However, that review will make extensive references to the movie Pulp Fiction, so if you have not already seen that movie, please just unsubscribe from this channel. But for people who have already read The Third Pole and watched Pulp Fiction, you can probably guess where this is going. For now, it is important to note that there is a clear message from the Chinese that they were the first to reach the summit from the north. Whether this is important to you or not is irrelevant. It is important to the Chinese.